I'm Hugh Hewitt. You hear me Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. on the Salem Radio Network. But Saturday mornings, I am right here on MSNBC. Each week, I ask my panelists of young journals, who is the most important person in the news, not named Trump? Annie Linskey, you go first this week. Who is it?
Excellent. I would say Stephen Bannon is the most important person, not named Trump. The reason is of the efforts he is making to locate primary candidates for Republican senators. And the reason I picked Bannon this week is because I was so struck, I'm sure you noticed this too, Hugh, during President Trump's press conference this week, he made an aside about Bannon. He was asked about primarying senators, and he said, well, I'm going to talk to Bannon and see if we can talk him out of a few of those. And I feel like that comment, to me, it just has been, it stuck with me all week. And it resonates about, the power that Bannon has. I mean, it's hard to imagine, Barack Obama saying, oh, hey, I'm going to try to talk Axelrod out of something. I mean, it would be pretty obvious he'd be able to do it. And then talking to some of the Bannon people this week, they said that, that was a signal to them. That was a signal to them that the president is not saying he doesn't want to see these primaries, not telling them to stop.
It's not a surprise to me after that comment with Leader McConnell that the Senate has gone 24/7 on a bunch of things. They've got to bunker down there and get going. Seung, what do you think? Who's the person most important not named Trump?
So the most important not named Trump to me is Chuck Grassley, the Republican from Iowa, the Senate Judiciary Committee chairman. And I came to this realization basically as I'm trying to ask him all these questions on Capitol Hill on different issues. He's always surrounded by reporters asking him questions about the Russia probe. And it's an amazing illustration of why this Iowa Republican, veteran senator, is in the middle of everything on Capitol Hill these days. He is leading one of the main Russia investigations, but he has a role in other major topics such as immigration, working with other Republicans on a potential DACA deal. We also have his role in confirming judges, which I know is important to you, Hugh, and also potentially criminal justice reform. It was very little notice, but he and a bipartisan group of senators rolled out a sweeping criminal justice reform measure earlier this month, and with a powerful ally in the White House, Jared Kushner, the senior advisor and son-in-law, maybe it could happen sometime this Congress.
Seung, I want him to burn the blue slips. Mitch McConnell wants him to burn the blue slips. That device by which a single senator can hold up a judicial nominee. Has Senator Grassley confided to you what his policy is going to be?
He is not yet ready to burn those blue slips just yet. There are Democratic senators still, at least 4 by my count, who are holding up circuit court nominees. Clearly, Grassley has the support of the conference should he decide to go ahead and schedule these hearings and process these nominees. But it's a decision that he hasn't come to just yet. He respects the process, respects the tradition of the Senate. But this could change.
If he doesn't do it. If he doesn't do it, say goodbye to the Senate majority. It'll be a disaster. James Hohmann, most important person not named Trump.
John McCain. Gave a big speech in Philadelphia on Monday, warning against sort of Trumpism in a similar way that I think George Bush did. But he also, late in the week, was threatening to subpoena the administration and to hold hearings from his perch as chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee related to Niger. So important. He is irate that the administration didn't brief him or Lindsey Graham on the fact that we even had special operation forces in Niger, as the administration historically and is legally supposed to do. There's also a lot of tension there. Republicans have such a small margin for error on tax cuts, on every part of the agenda. This week, after McCain gave that speech on Monday, Donald Trump said, John McCain better be careful because he doesn't want me to start attacking him. I'm not sure how much further you can go than saying that a guy with terminal brain cancer isn't a war hero. But the more that Donald Trump sort of has this impulse to counterpunch at McCain takes that stuff personally. I can see McCain, if he wanted to, completely sabotaging the president's agenda. He is never going to ballot again. He has nothing else to lose, and so he's someone who kind of can be unpredictable historically and now has every incentive in the world to thwart Donald Trump at the opportune moments.
I think you're right about that. I don't think he'll take the tax deal, though, off the table, because that has baked into it some relief for the military as well. Let me go to you, Courtney. Who's the most important person not named Trump?
Well, I agree with James. Actually, McCain, that's a good one. But I would say this week it's John Kelly, for all the reasons we already talked about. He's He came out and gave this very personal account. One thing that I found really interesting, well, two things that I found really interesting from his appearance in the briefing room yesterday. He talked not only about his son, Robert, who was killed in Afghanistan, but he spoke about his other son and said that he's serving in Iraq right now. I found that very surprising. That's another thing that's always been kind of sacrosanct. I was with General Petraeus in Afghanistan when he was the head of ISAF, and his son was there. And we always shied away from talking about it just so we didn't make them a target. So that was very surprising. I also thought him telling the story about his guidance to President Trump, telling President Trump not to make the call to the widow, to Sergeant Johnson's widow, and then telling him what happened when General Dunford informed him of his son's death. And the advice, I thought that was a very interesting insight into his relationship with President Trump. Something that, you know, we've talked a lot about the influence that he must have with the president, but that right there really illustrated it.
I played that whole speech twice on my radio show on Friday so that people could hear the details of returning the fallen to America. It was really profoundly moving. My person's another general. It's General Soleimani, the head of the Quds Force. He is Iran's expeditionary. He's their Rommel. And where was he this week? In Kirkuk. And what is happening that we don't notice? A civil war in Iraq. Shia militias attacking the Kurds. That may be what we're talking about next week. But when we come back from break, we'll talk about what we are all reading this week. Stay right here. I'll be back with the books.